with these times with COVID-19 floating around and all the shutdowns and all the lockdowns, I feel we have a lot of craziness going on. We have a lot of concern, some justifiable, some out of panic. I don't believe we need to panic as much as we do. I've been asked lots of questions about growing your own food and storing your own food, preserving your own food. And I don't think we need to unless you want to. But I don't believe that the food stream is going to shut off because of this. I think there might be some things that are more difficult to get. We might be looking at going without fresh tomatoes. We're not going to be getting tomatoes from Mexico, South America. We're going to be getting local tomatoes, which most of our tomatoes are just grown in one valley in California, and they're not going to be able to supply everybody. But there's still going to be lots and lots of staples that aren't going to be cut off. So if you're thinking about starting a garden out of fear, please don't. If you're starting a garden because you want to get back to our roots of our own gardening and preserving your own food, that's great. And that will be relaxing, that will be fun, and that will be rewarding. So I've been hammered with questions the last few weeks of what do I do? Where do I start? I need to do this. What seeds do I go buy? So part of this project is Jeremy's project. He's going to be our chief editor. So something he wanted to get into and try. I don't mind making the videos. I have lots of videos for my own use to go back as my own record. But I don't have time or the will to want to edit them. So Jeremy's going to take on the task of editing, and I'm going to take on the task of teaching and learning. So for those folks who want to get into gardening, get back into gardening, or want to do better at gardening, I don't know if I can help you folks, but I bet we can share some information. So first and foremost, a lot of the questions I get is, where do I start? So start small. If you are starting brand new, start small. I see so many people start with 500, 800, 1,000 square foot gardens. They're excited, they're energetic, and it gets all planted. And by mid-July, they can't keep up with the watering. They can't keep up with the weeds. They're frustrated. They feel like they've failed, and they don't want to go on anymore. So that's daunting. I suggest you start small, start concise, start with a few products, few plants. I shouldn't say plants, varieties. So in my opinion, my recommendation, let's not do corn, let's not do carrots, let's not do potatoes, let's not do anything like that because those are so readily available and they're so inexpensive. If you want to, that's fine, but if you're a brand new gardener, let's start with 3 things, okay? Let's start with 3 varieties, and if you want to grow from there, that's great. But master 3, move on to your 4th, then 5th, then 6th. But prioritize what you want to eat, what you like to eat, and if you can store it, how can you store it? So this is kind of an overview of things we'll break down in greater detail. But just start with that. Make that list of stuff your family likes to eat and you know how to store. We can also touch on things of teaching you how to store, from cabbages that you just cut the cabbage head off and it will store in a cellar. Refrigerators are almost too cold and too damp, but we have storageable cabbage that'll store for months just on the shelves of our cellar. Acorn squash, butternut squash, excellent stores. They'll store for a long, long time. Even though I did say carrots store for a long time, and you don't have to can carrots. We bed our carrots in peat moss. So we have these big plastic totes that we put down an inch or two of peat moss, and we layer carrots. And then we layer dirt, layer carrots, layer dirt, layer carrots, layer. So they're just stored in dirt. They stay in dirt, and they stay fresh all year long. We still have, down in our root cellar, we still have 20, 30 pounds of fresh carrots we just pull out of the peat moss. I can teach you how to set up your garden bed so you can harvest carrots into the winter. Many people struggle with this. The easiest way to do, the biggest thing you got to do is you got to cover them. You got to cover them with a waterproof material, plastic or something like that. Because if the rains and everything get in the soil and then freeze the soil solid, then you can't dig your root vegetable out. But if we cover it, put some dry leaves in the fall on top of it, and then cover it in plastic, and then just pull back 3 or 4 feet whenever we want to dig new, and we let that ground dry out, that ground isn't frozen solid. Much easier to dig your carrots out of. So there's all types of things we can help teach you to store. But for now, if you're just getting in a garden, what's the 3 things you want to grow? Let's not mess with Brussels sprouts. Let's not mess with greenhouse tomatoes or peppers. Maybe outdoor peppers, outdoor tomatoes. Those would be my go-to. Those things that you really, really want that are a little harder to get from the store. That could be super beneficial. Beans, unless you just hate beans, beans are super easy to can. You can grow piles and piles. You can freeze them. You can do lots of things with beans. So we'll talk more about that, but right now, as we're looking at going forth into gardening, pick 3 things you really want to raise, and we'll help show you stuff from there. Weeds. Man, we hate weeds. Weeds is the biggest deter of keeping our garden going. Here, we do everything we can to eliminate weeds. We have our 1-acre pumpkin patch, cantaloupe patch, and we're implementing new things this year to help with weeds. In our garden, we will show you that we don't rototill. We haven't rototilled in a long time. We use a tool called a broad fork just to loosen the soil. And then we always use the same 30-inch beds. We don't re-rototill, reform, remake everything, reinvent the wheel every single year. We tend to 30-inch rows with 1-foot walk spaces. And when we uncover the garden here in a bit, we'll definitely show you. We just tend to those. We amend those soils. We add a compost layer, add some other amendments to it when it's that time. Broad fork it in. We don't till, but we tilth just the top little bit. We fluff it up, and that's all the more we do. We broad fork and then rake it flat and tilth it. We keep using the same beds over and over and over. Something I said a minute ago, we tarp our beds. So many people get done with their fall gardens, they just walk away from them. And then you have a lot of fall growth. You have overwintering issues. We try to remove every bit of growth matter. We put that in a compost pile, something else we can talk about, and we completely bare off our beds, but then we tarp them. We tarp them to seal them off from excess moisture, just leaching out our nutrients. We tarp it to allow the earthworms to come to the top of the surface, and they can work on breaking down those soils and doing great things, aerating. Worms never stop going up and down, so they aerate forever. And then right now, if your garden's exposed, it's probably starting to grow some weeds. Ours is completely sealed off from the sun. It's staying there. Nothing's going to happen to it. So soon, we're going to pull back the tarp. We're going to broad fork it to loosen it up so we keep it aerobic, not anaerobic. We want it to have oxygen flowing up and down through that profile, and then we're going to re-tarp it. And we won't mess with it until we are ready to plant. We won't pull that tarp off until we are ready to plant. So we will tilt the top of the soil, shape our beds, and we almost always use a weed mat. The weed fabric, 36-inch weed fabric, 30-inch bed. Do we just roll a little bit of dirt on the edge? We'll show you how we plant into it, how we grow into it. But that's what we do to keep weeds, because we have 5 40-foot rows, 3 30-foot rows, a potato patch, an onion patch, and then the big garden. And sometimes out in the pumpkin patch, we'll put rows of stuff out there like beans. We'll put them out there to free up our garden space. So we weed mat it. We burn holes in it where we plant stuff, and that suppresses so many of the weeds. Root veg, radishes, beets, carrots are about the only root veg we really grow. Well, potatoes. But we do those in raised beds. We've got new raised beds that we have right out in front of the greenhouse that I'm in. A couple other raised beds out in the yard. And then the 3 potager gardens that April has. And we can control the soil in there. So we started with new soil. We make our own soil. It's not, you can make your own soil too. It's a little bit more expensive, but in the long run, it's such better soil. It's non-compacted, so our carrots have that nice, perfect shape. They're not going in our hard clay grounds and not trying to grow around rocks and other stuff. So we can plant them much denser, much closer together, because the soil is so soft and so forgiving. They can be planted very tight and still get a nice uniform grow. So we have 2 3-foot by 6-foot beds, 18 square foot beds. One is going to be beets, one is going to be carrots. We'll crop those out, we'll can those, preserve those, and then we'll replant midsummer for a fall one, and we'll reuse them that way too. So half of those will be eaten fresh, half of them or so will be canned, and then the second round, the same thing. We'll have half of them eaten fresh, and then half of them will be canned. Our tomato garden is also, we plant in the exact same hole. Some folks say that's not possible. You'll carry over disease. We prevent disease by making healthy soil. So our tomato garden is weed matted, except for where the tomatoes go every single year. So we just dig in the exact same spot every year. Yes, we do get some surface weeds. Tumbleweed will blow through there, and we'll get some new surface weeds, but still, the battle is controllable. The battle of the weeds is controllable. We can sustain that. We'll also show you about bag growing, okay? So when this greenhouse is done with all of our plant starts, this is a 16 by 24 greenhouse. When it's got all the plant starts out of here, the tables all get moved out of here, and we have an open floor. Well, I don't like to plant in the soil for multiple reasons. If I have different crops, half this greenhouse will be tomatoes and half this greenhouse will be peppers. I may have different soil amendments. So in these bags, cheap bags, are just a heavy felt. They'll last multiple seasons. These are 7 gallons. I can grow a tomato, I can grow a pepper easily in a 7-gallon bag. The bags will just be lined up on the ground, and we'll just have drip remitters run into it. So think of it that way. You can put grow bags along a sidewalk and run a drip system to every single one of them, and you have virtually no weeds. So just think, for your family, you could have 2 full-size tomato plants and 2 cherry tomato plants, 4 tomato plants, and they could be in the grow bags. We're also going to do an experiment this year with you folks. We're going to do, I got a couple of big grow bags, and we're going to see how many pounds of potatoes we can grow in a bag layering system. So we're going to put 1 or 2 in the bottom, put our potato starts, cover them with soil, and as those plants grow, we're going to keep adding soil, adding soil, adding soil. So that profile of that plant is all the way through that grow bag. Then we'll teach you how to amend that soil, keep that going, and then at the end of the year, we'll just tip the bag over and roll out and see how many potatoes we can get from one bag. I think I have 10-gallon bags for that, so we'll see what we can do in that. And then all of that soil from the grow bags all goes in your compost pile. It goes in your compost pile for the winter. You add it with all your green manure growth, maybe some animal manure if you can get your hands on some. You turn it a few times. You keep it tarped, keep it damp, and then next spring you're reloaded with all your soil to keep going for the next year. So, what do I do with my garden right now? So, a lot of people, the questionnaire and then a lot of private questions I get are, what do I put in my soil? What do I add to my soil? I don't know. It's just like large agriculture. We don't know what to add each year without getting a soil sample. So first thing I would recommend anybody to get, this will make you money. This will save you money. This will make you money. Go on to Amazon, type in Soil Savvy on Amazon. From there, you can buy this soil test kit. It's $27.99, $28. This company's actually out of Walla Walla. You can buy it directly from their company, but it's so easy just to shoot it off Amazon. But either way, it's the same price, I do believe. In here is the kit and tells you what to do. I've already done 2 of these. This is an empty box. I've already done 2 of these. I've got a couple more coming, and I will try in my other areas because I want to keep my beds separate. I may even test my compost or my own potting soil to see where it sits. But it's super easy. You get an envelope, everything's in there, and the $27 kit pays for the test. It's all done. One-time fee, postage, everything's done. So in this box is a foil envelope, is a small canister with a liquid and a little, I'm going to guess, a preserving pellet in it. And then it's got a measurable scoop. You'll go through your garden area. You'll take small samples and put them in a clean bucket or a clean bowl. You'll get 10, 12 samples throughout your garden, only 4 or 5 inches deep, if that. Just get that top little area, put it in there. You're going to thoroughly stir it. Do it with gloves on or do it with a spoon. Try to avoid any hand contact to the soil because it's such a small sample. You can get oils and stuff off your hand that may not give you true accuracy. So clean bowl, clean hands. Try not to touch the soil sample. I actually have a field plug that we use out on the big farm, a soil plug that we can just push in the ground and it pulls out a core. I go along 3 or 4 of those in every single one of our rows, mix it together, put the scoop in there, fill the scoop, put it in the little cup full of water, screw the lid shut. There's 2 postcards to fill out. You pull out your postcard, you tell them what you're going to be growing. Is it vegetable? You can do this for your lawn if you want, or other. So I'll mix potting soil or whatever it might be. Put that in there. You peel off one of the barcodes off of the little jar. You stick that on your postcard. You drop it in the mail. Everything's done. 7 to 10 days, you can log on to their website, unibestinc.com. You log on to their website, and all you do is type in your barcode. And from there, it shows you a full profile of all the nutrients, micronutrients in the soil, where their range is, what you need to add. They give you a choice to add recommended fertilizer of synthetic, and they also give you the recommended organic fertilizers if you want to go that route. The other cool thing is if you really just want to be efficient and not mess with it, they're also tied to a couple stores. And you can just go right on and buy the nutrient package right from the stores and online and have it just sent to you. Or you can go to any gardening store and be able to get it also. But it's kind of a full meal deal. So that'll be coming in a week or so. When I get my results and my new tests, I'll do another video on what the results look like, what they read. I'll give you a tutorial on how to take a soil test. So those of you getting into gardening, let's wrap this up. First thing I want you to do is get a soil test. It's really hard to give you advice on what you need to add to your soil unless you have a soil test. By knowing your pH, by knowing your soil makeup and everything like that, I or a lot of people can recommend if you're going to add gypsum. Gypsum helps break up clay soils. A lot of people said, oh, you just need to add sand. And I don't have the figure with me, but there's the soil triangle. And if you're below 40% sand and you start getting into that 60% clay, you have to add so much sand to get that to fix the balance that it would raise your garden bed. You're going to spend a ton of money in sand. Most of your sand you're going to get full of weeds and everything else. It's not just like you're going to add a couple of bucketfuls of sand and everything's going to get fixed. But gypsum will help that. Gypsum will break down the calcium in it, will break down the structure of the clay and be able to let water into it and be able to not just turn into a rock. So if you add sand to clay and you don't have the right ratio or a significant amount of it, you're just going to make cement because that clay will adhere to around the sand particles and you're just going to end up making cement. So there are other ways to break down and break up clay soils. We don't want to rototill. I'm not a big fan of rototilling unless you're just in a brand new garden space and you're sod busting. And it truthfully hasn't been worked for years and years and years. I would maybe rototill. But to rototill every single year and completely destroy the soil structure from the year before, you're starting with a brand new garden bed every year. You're also making a beautiful garden bed for weeds. So by just working with the top inch, 2 inches, tilting it, adding in some amendments on top, and letting those soils gradually go down, the worms will carry it down. Let nature work for you. Don't go in a rototill. That's the biggest frustration that you can have is by re-wrecking the soil every single year. So that was a lot. It's a big 30,000 foot view. We're going to do more isolated videos of this in the future. Things to think about though. What 3 things do you want to grow? We can grow from there. If you're more experienced and got this, yeah, let's go ahead and grow more. And I'll show you tricks and stuff that we use that we've had really good success with. Raised garden beds. We'll show you our raised garden beds in another video. We'll show you our tomato beds. We'll show you how to condense crop. You know, plant some of your root veg with your potatoes. When you plant potatoes, it's going to take a long time for those plants to get big. Why not interrow a batch of radishes? Radishes are only 28 days. So you can get probably 2 crops of radishes before the potato plants get too big. And you're using that bed for more things. So we'll teach you stuff like that. But, so first thing, make your list of what you want in your garden for the year. What am I going to focus on? I'm going to help you with weeds. The other thing, if you want, but I would recommend it, spend the money on a soil sample kit. Find out what you're working with, especially if you have never really taken one. Because sometimes the worst thing you can add to a garden is just nitrogen. Not every bed needs nitrogen. Not every crop wants nitrogen. So just adding nitrogen over and over and over is a detrimental thing. I'll show you our lawn. I'm kind of a lawn nerd, even though I want less lawn. I haven't added fertilizer to our lawn in 15 years. We have a great lawn. We don't thatch. We don't, or dethatch. We don't aerate. We don't do anything. I've got some secrets that I do for our lawn, but just adding nitrogen to sick plants is like making you eat when you're sick. You don't want it. It doesn't work. And it actually can go the other way for a plant. So we want to be across the board with our nutrients, know when to give them, know when to use them, know how much, but we don't know unless we have a baseline. So get a soil test and we'll talk more. Thank you much. Any questions, please fire them off. Any future videos, but like I said, we're going to go through all those things. Let's work through this spring and start some people with some gardens because it's fun. Take care.